Welcome to the Publishing Performance Show, the podcast that helps self-published authors turn their passion into a profit. Now, I'm your host, Teddy Smith, and if you're serious about building a sustainable business, then you're in the right place. Every week, I sit down with successful authors, industry experts, and publishing professionals who share their exact strategies they use right now to how they've grown their business, grow their readership, increase their book sales, and essentially to make a bit more money. Now, whether you're just starting out or you're looking to scale your existing publishing business, you'll walk away from every episode with actionable insights you can implement immediately. Now, if you're new here, it would really help me out if you could subscribe either on Apple or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you are. Just simply hit the subscribe button. It really helps the show to get more reach, which means we can get better guests for you and we can help you out in more ways. All right, let's dive into this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Hassan Osman, who is an Amazon bestselling author and also the founder of Side Gig Hacks and Writer on the Side. So thanks for joining the show, Hassan.
Thank you, Teddy. I'm super excited to be talking to you today.
Well, you've got quite a varied background. So usually I try and ask a question that gets to the bottom of where people are. But I think actually with you, it'd be easiest for you to give us a bit of a background into like how you got started with and how you got to the point where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Happy to give a quick overview. Honestly, this is a question that's always hard to answer, but I'll try my best. So I'm a creator on the side. So for many years, I had a full-time demanding job in the corporate world. I'm based out of the US. And I remember since starting my first job, I've always had something that I've created on the side. Mainly, I've published books. So I've published over 20 books so far. 9 of them are Amazon bestsellers, over 120,000 readers. And I've also published courses about different topics, which we'll talk about here in a second, but over 17 courses, 430,000 plus unique students, and then multiple different types of digital products as well on the side. You know, just to give context to your listeners about what those topics are about, I mainly publish short books and short courses for busy managers. Like that's my core sort of creation bucket. And it really helps corporate leaders, managers, executives in Fortune 500 organizations become more effective leaders and managers, sort of understand the different soft skills needed to lead their teams. And I've always loved creating more than marketing. So I don't really enjoy talking a lot about my books or trying to sell them. And so I rely heavily on existing platforms. So with Amazon, with books, I should say, it's Amazon. And then with courses, it's Udemy. So really kind of rely on the underlying engine of their sort of built-in search capabilities to get folks to organically find those books and courses and purchase them. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And I've tried to kind of master the 80-20 on everything. Like, what are the 20% of actions that get me 80% of the results, whether it's book creation or courses or other digital products as well?
Yeah. The reason I got in touch with you in the first place was because I've been following you through Twitter and I think I found something that I found interesting and then followed you. And the story really resonated with me about this being a creator on the side, because one of the things we talk about the most in this podcast is about how writers can turn their writing basically into more of a business. You know, a lot of authors want to write their books, but I think a lot of the stuff you focus on is how you can expand that business from not just being a book into being something like a lead magnet or actually a way of making money in itself, like a course, which was why I found it so interesting. And one of the first things you said with your book on your website was writing a book is a bit like having a business card on steroids. So why don't you tell me a bit about what you meant by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of that phrase. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Don't write a book, write a business card on steroids. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of, I don't want to call it like a section of the internet, maybe different types of creators who are heavily focused on the money-making aspect. So in some cases, you see a lot of creators saying, you don't even need to know how to write. You don't need to know how to market books. You just sort of hack the system, understand Amazon's algorithm, and start pumping out different types of books. There's something called low content books or no content books, or even books that they don't write, but they outsource. Previously, before ChatGPT and AI, it was outsourcing it to like countries like the Philippines or India and have people write a full book for like $20 and then just publish that. So there's a huge section of the internet that talks about that. I don't judge it, but that's not for me. It's not what I teach. It's not what I like to talk about. I think a book is really more of a business card on steroids, which means that The money is great. Like, it's good to get an income stream. We all need money to survive. We all need it to be able to fund our business and our hobbies. But at the same time, you can, if you look at a book as an asset, you can make more money because of your book than from your book. And what I mean by from is through direct royalties, like meaning actual sales. But then because is when you use your book to upsell other consulting, coaching services, other products that you have, which are higher ticket items, build a brand that people would invite you to kind of speak about a particular topic or share your thought leadership on in some of the most prestigious news outlets out there, right? Like, that to me is the purpose of writing a book. It's again a business card that opens up a lot more opportunities for you, that makes more potential revenue from because of your book than from your book. That's sort of my entire philosophy, Teddy, and that's what I like to focus on. It's not just creating a book for the sake of creating it and making a couple of bucks.
Yeah. A lot of people I speak to kind of feel a bit funny about these alternative revenue streams from their book, because they think, I'm a writer, I want to focus on writing these books. But if you think about some of the more famous authors, like Michael Michalowicz from who wrote Profits First, he's made loads more money from just selling his book as he has from training accountants to becoming profit first professionals off the back of writing that book in the first place. So, if people like these big names are doing that as well, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing that too.
I mean, look, again, I just don't want people to get me wrong. Like, I would love to sell 1 million copies of my book, right? Like, yeah. That's, I mean, it's not like I'm not going to take it, but it's sort of, what are you prioritizing, right? Like, if you're just focused on the, money-making aspect of that being that product, then I think you're leaving a lot of other potential opportunities and money on the table, right? Like, you can really gain a lot from having a book out there that can help you out a lot. And I'm happy to give multiple examples because that has helped me in the past quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for example, in talking about that, how do you choose the topic that you want to write about if you're feeling a bit stuck?
Yeah, so I have a very formulaic approach to picking topics, and this applies, by the way, to books or courses or any other product, right? So I like to think about four intersecting circles. So think of a Venn diagram, and each circle has a different label, and I'll go through them. So the first circle is what I call interest, meaning you want to choose a topic that you are interested in. And now, interested doesn't necessarily mean you have to be absolutely in love with the topic, right? But you have to have some level of passion towards it, because what happens is, if your book becomes very successful, you're going to be doing a lot of talking and speaking about it, like coming on your podcast, for example, to talk about the content of the book. And if you're not interested in that topic, it's going to fizzle out. It's going to show. People can easily smell that, right? Even in your writing, people can tell if you're not sort of passionate about what you're writing. Again, maybe passion is not the right word. It's just at some level of interest, deep interest in that. So that's the first circle. The second is experience. And what I mean by that is you have to have some level of experience with the topic that you're writing about. Now, when I say experience, many people feel like that is confused with being an expert on a topic. Those are two separate things, right? You can be you can have some experience in a topic, but not necessarily an expert. And as a matter of fact, being an expert sometimes could work against you, because of this concept called the curse of knowledge. So I'll take a sidebar here and just kind of talk about this, because I think it's important, and it'll open up people who are listening to this to maybe get encouraged to write a book. So you can, let's say, be a PhD in nuclear engineering, and you've worked for 20 years in that field. And then you're asked to teach high school students a physics 101 class, right? In that particular case, because of this concept called the curse of knowledge, you, as a PhD in nuclear engineering and worked in a nuclear power plant for 20 years, might forget what it's like to be a high school student, to go back to the basics, right? Because you're trained, or your mind is sort of used to talking to people who are already take things for granted. So that knowledge that you have, that advanced knowledge, curses you from being able to explain concepts simply. Whereas if you take someone who just graduated high school, right, and they've maybe even worked as a teaching assistant, helping other students understand physics concepts, you are probably more qualified to teach those high school students, because you think at their level, but you're a couple of steps ahead, right? So that might give you an advantage. Like you as a high school graduate could be more qualified to write a book about teaching physics than a nuclear physicist, right? So that's what I mean by experience. And you don't need to kind of worry about having a deep level of expertise in that. So that's the second circle. So first was interest, and then second is experience. The third is market. And what I mean by that is having some sort of active buy-sell market for the topic or the general topic of your book, right? An easy way to check this is just go on Amazon, look for books that are similar in style to what you want to write about. And if you don't find anything, that's usually, not always, a red flag, right? Like that just signifies that maybe there's not enough interest to justify writing a book for it. Whereas if you do find some sort of activity on books that people are actually buying those books, and you can tell if people are buying them by the number of reviews. So if you have like 10 different books and they have 0 reviews on all of them, that doesn't, give you a good indication. My general rule of thumb is look for like at least 5 books with 15 to 20 reviews each, right? Like if you see that, then maybe it's a good sign. So that's the third bucket, market. And then the fourth is job related or business related. And what I mean by that is you want to write about a topic that is similar to the career you're in, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you're a full-time employee. Let's say you're an accountant at a big company. Writing a book about accounting or that field is going to pay dividends later on because of that business card on steroids effect, right? Because it's going to, if you want to apply for a different job, and there's a couple of candidates, the candidate that's written a book about this is probably, will be seen as more qualified in the eyes of the recruiter than someone who hasn't. So it gives you a little bit of an edge. And really the intersection of those 4 circles, so interest, experience, market, and job related or career related, is that sweet spot. Like if you can find the topic that matches all 4, then you are on the right track and you're probably going to, publish a book that's going to help you tremendously later on. So that's how I think about it.
Do you think when you're finding those topics and you're trying to understand exactly what it is you want to write about, do you find it's better to try and stick to quite broad topics? So say, for example, you're writing about your career. Would you want to talk about something that's quite broad about your career? Or would you try and keep it niche? Because I know your books are quite small, so they're very like specific topics, but is there a better way to approach it?
Yeah, definitely keep it niche or niche. I know I keep forgetting how they pronounce the word, different pronunciations. But yeah, I like to narrow it down as much as possible. Broad topics in general. There's the saying that if you write to everybody, you're writing to nobody, right? So I'm a big fan of taking a general topic and then narrowing it down. And you narrow a topic down by focusing on 2 things. The first is you narrow down the audience. And then the second is you narrow down the outcome. And when you're thinking about the audience, so instead of writing to, let's say a general topic is personal finance, right? You've got some financial experience. If you write a book called Personal Finance, that to me is very, very broad. A better sort of, sub outcome, target would be maybe to get out of debt, right? Like that's sort of a better outcome than just learning about personal finance. And then from an audience standpoint, you can also say, personal finance for people in the US. That to me is still very, very broad, hundreds of millions of people. Whereas if you've on, people living in the US making less than $70,000 a year and working a full-time job, right? Now you have an avatar you can focus on and you can speak their language and use that as the sort of foundation to write a title and subtitle that has a narrow focus, right? So that's how I always like to think about it. Going more niche, going more narrow is going to help you more than just being very broad where you target everyone.
Yeah. So some of those topics will end up becoming quite niche. And I know a lot of your books, you even say on your website, these are like very short books.
Yes.
How many words are we looking at with like your books as like actual examples?
Yeah. So 10,000 to 12,000 words is my target word count.
Really short.
Yeah. Yeah. Really short. I like short because they're easier to write. They're easier to edit. They're easier to proofread, easier to ship.
Yeah.
But it's also from a customer standpoint, it's easier to read and digest and finish, right? Like most, I think the statistic is most people stop reading a 400-page book after like page 70. So I learned early on, like, why don't I just write 70 pages? right? Like that's it's like now you get people to actually complete the book and apply what they already learned.
Yeah.
And so and those are the types of books that I like to read, to be honest, Eddie. Like I don't want to read a 700-page manual on a certain topic. I just want to get to the meat, get to learn what I need to apply, and just take it from there.
Even fiction writers use that same approach, where they keep their books as short as possible until they've built up that fan base, because no one wants to just pick up a 700-page book and read about characters they've never heard about before. And I think the exact same concept is going to work for your books as well, because no one knows you and the concepts are quite small, so you don't need to be writing 700 pages.
Exactly. I mean, it lowers the friction for someone to say, yeah, I can read 40 pages about this story, and if I like it, I'll end up going with the second, third, and fourth book in the series. Just to clarify, I don't know much about fiction writing. Like, my focus has always been on nonfiction, but I know it absolutely works in the fiction world, and people have been leveraging that strategy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, one of the things you said before is that promotion starts before the book is actually completed. So why is that so important?
Yeah, I think promotion is everything. So, when I kind of, coach about book writing, I tell people, like, marketing isn't a step in the process. Marketing cuts across every single step. It literally starts day one. And, in terms of thinking about the topic, and in terms of doing your research with everything, and then it goes all throughout publishing, launching your book, and even after publishing your book, right? Like, there's a huge amount of effort that goes after you publish it. How do you continuously market it? How do you talk about it? How do you come up with creative ways to sell it, right? So, marketing is everything, obviously, with books, and whether it's relying on systems and platforms like Amazon, or relying on how you position it. If you don't believe in it, if you don't think about selling it, even if it's not, we're not talking about being slimy or sleazy with pushing it on people, but just kind of talking about it casually, even on this podcast, for example, just to kind of plant that seed in people's minds that there's something that you might be interested in, and provides value for you. So yeah, marketing is everything, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I liked about you the most, and what got me to get in touch was, I think you make quite a big distinction between just being a writer and being a creator. And I think that, your whole project's called Being a Creator on the Side, or Side Gig Hacks. And it's all about creating. And I think your flow of content is really valuable to people. And I've got really inspired by looking at it and thinking, okay, all of the posts you go out at the same time, and they're in the exact same format. But how important do you think that is? And what tips can you give to people for how they can create that content flow that looks like what you create?
Thank you. I mean, look, I'm a big believer in repurposing content too, right? Like, you put in the hard work once. So, I really pour my heart into writing a book that I'm proud of, even though sometimes it doesn't do well. And, I do get sometimes negative reviews, but I'm at least satisfied or happy with the effort in researching the book and writing it and refining it to the best that I could. And so when you put in that much effort into a book, there are, instead of kind of constantly being under stress to think about what type of content you want to create, whether to market the book or market yourself, you already have an asset that you can use to continuously talk about the stuff that took you a long time to create, right? So my content flow, I mean, I don't have a very sort of systematic way of saying every time I publish a book, this is what I'm going to do. It's a little bit more chaotic, if you may, but like, things or ideas about how I think about it. Like, I'll walk you through at a high level, just a sort of a structured approach, even though that's not what I always follow, but it's just an idea. Yeah. So when I wrote one book, which is one of my best-selling books, called Write Your Book on the Side. By the way, it's free now on Amazon and on Gumroad and on my Side Gig Hacks newsletter. But that book, when I launched it, it did really well. It was a paid version of the book. And then when I saw that the ebook did well, I was like, I already have the content. Let's create a paperback copy and an audiobook version of it. So I created those, low lift, because it's the same content, but then you have to just format it correctly. And then after those did well, I was like, all right, what do I need to do now? People are asking me a lot of questions. I'm just going to start the podcast to talk about this. And so I created a podcast called Writer on the Side. And literally the first maybe 10 episodes of the podcast was me reading chapters of the book. People didn't know that, but I was just like, I just said that this is the title of the book because I was too lazy, and I was like, I have the content. Let me just start with that. And it got some, an audience that I never was able to get through my book, because some people love to listen more than they love to, to read. So that helped. And then I created a blog that went along with it. And then the first maybe 10 or 15 blog posts were literally repurposing my first few chapters of the book, right? And then I did a webinar, which was, again, like a free webinar, just told people to come in and I'll answer questions. And I did that as well. And then I'm like, I'm going to create a Twitter account, the one that we just talked about, how we connected. Literally started based on the content of the book, and was like, I need to be a little bit more interactive with the public. The first maybe 100 tweets were portions of the book where on Kindle, there's something called popular highlights. So I can download my own book and I'll see what people highlighted in the book as things that they saw were insightful. And so I took those highlights and I just repurposed them into tweets as well, right? Like that was sort of creating more content overall. And then after a while, I decided I'm just going to put the book out for free on Amazon and Gumroad. And I decided I'm going to do a newsletter. So now you can, if you go to sidegighacks.com, you get a free copy of my book. And, now I use it as a lead magnet, right? So if, look at that journey, it's not just repurposing content, growing a, podcast, growing a Twitter account, now having newsletter and using that as a freebie. And by the way, if you download the book on Amazon, because on Amazon is someone who's probably never heard of me, in the Amazon sort of link, there's a link inside the book where if you click on it, I give you another sort of freebie and, have you sign up to my newsletter as well. So you get something else in addition to signing up to my newsletter. It's sort of like a full closed system or flow. And it all started from just putting in the effort to write one single book, right? And then kind of create multiple different pieces of content based on it.
That's an amazing nugget. That's thing about taking your book and repurposing it for Twitter, because one of the things I always tell people, students I speak to, if you've written your book, you've already got 30,000 odd words of content. Why don't you take some of that content? You've got 10 chapters, make 3 blog posts from each chapter, use the exact same content. You've then already got 30 blog posts, which then turns into basically 6 months of newsletters, which you can then send out. So without that much extra effort, you're already starting to create a content system that takes what you've already written and repurposing it.
Exactly.
But I haven't heard it been used for Twitter before. So that's really interesting, because Twitter's always a platform I've struggled to get a lot of traction with. So or X, we should probably call it now, but so when you're repurposing the content from your book, what did that look like in terms of turning it into tweets? How did you do that?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. One is, as I mentioned, I looked at the popular highlights. So those are let's say 600 people highlighted this paragraph. It just meant that, there's something there. So I would take that and then I'll make it a little bit more contextual on Twitter. So, if I just copy paste it, if it makes sense on its own, then I'll just post it on its, as it stands. But if not, I'll just add a little bit of maybe an intro, a 1-line intro, and then a conclusion sentence just to make it a little bit more catchy on Twitter. But then, in terms of other ways I repurposed the book, this isn't maybe directly from the book, but it's sort of questions that I get. When you get questions, maybe via email or your newsletter, if someone asks you a question, there's a high chance that other people have that question as well. And so you can answer it on Twitter without someone asking you. Literally just take, for example, someone the other day emailed me saying, hey, I want to write under different pen names. I don't want to use my, real name. Amazon lets you do that without an issue. You don't need to use your real name. You have to sign up with your real name just to get paid, right? In the US, there's a social security number or EIN. You have to provide that. But then you can have up to 3 different pen names. Actually, it might be even up to 10 now, but you have to email them for that you can use under different pseudonyms. And you can, the cool thing is you can now, which is what I do, publish using different pen names, different genres of books, right? So I use my full name, Hassan Osman, for my management books, the short books for busy managers. But then just for fun, I write a book, travel, and, traveling with my family and all that. I don't want to be a travel blogger, but I created a separate, I think, H.Osman pen name where I publish all those travel books too. And that way I keep those separate. I just, kind of like that. And I've done this with children's books as well, that sort of thing. So long story to say, I ended up telling people how to do that on Twitter without really being asked, and that got some, likes and shares and retweets and that sort of thing. So that's also a way in which you can repurpose content, regardless of the topic that you write about. If you get questions, start creating content that that leverages that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think I have to try some of those tips, because Twitter's a platform that I've sort of struggled to get traction with. I end up getting distracted looking at politics and stuff like that. So now, one of the things we mentioned at the beginning was the other income sources that you talk about in your program. And one of them especially is, I think you've mentioned two big ones, say, which I don't know too much about. One's Udemy and the other one is Gumroad. Why don't we start with Udemy? How does that work for creating content, and how do you make money from that as well?
Yeah, so speaking of repurposing, what we didn't talk about in the example is that nearly every single book I publish ends up being a course on Udemy. And the reason why I do that is because, again, I've put in the hard work on the book and I just provide it in a different format for people to consume. So some people just love watching videos and listening versus opening up a book and reading it. So why not make those books turn into courses? And by the way, I do it the other way around. Like, for example, I just published a course on Udemy about AI change management. I don't have a book about that yet, but I'm repurposing the course into a book. The way Udemy works is it's great because it's a marketplace. It's like YouTube for course learners.
Yeah.
And it's primarily for paid courses, right? Unlike YouTube, where people expect that they're watching for free. With Udemy, it's like you're going there on that platform, similar to Amazon for books, where people are not going on Amazon looking for free books. They're looking to buy something, whether it's books or other products. With Udemy, same thing. People are searching for courses that are paid and they're willing to pay to learn. So I just love repurposing my books into courses because they add a revenue stream that in some cases is unexpected. Like, I'll give you an example. I wrote a book once called Better Online Meetings. I wrote this in COVID. Didn't do really well. Like it sold, maybe total lifetime royalties is around $600. But then I repurposed that into a course on Udemy. It has a similar title. Honestly, I forgot because I've published 17 courses in Udemy. I think it's More Effective Meetings or Better Virtual Meetings or something like that. But that course, same content. It's just slides with me talking over it. The lifetime royalties for that course so far are around $35,000. Wow. So you go from the exact same content in a book that doesn't do so well, but repurpose it into a course and end up making 5 figures in royalties. So again, people consume things differently, different platforms market things differently. And I'm just a big fan of that platform as well. And I'm constantly creating courses on there as well as books on Amazon.
How does it work in the same way where you can promote your courses to get them a bit more visibility?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I can, I used to have like a full course on Udemy, like a full 4-hour course. So I can talk a lot about this. I pulled it off the market because I'm probably going to be launching a cohort-based course about it soon. But yeah, just the short answer is yes, I rely 97% of the sales I get. And again, I got like over 430,000 unique students on that platform. I rely 97%, if not even 99% on the platform. Like I barely do any I do self-promotion, but they barely get any sales. Like I can track all of that, right? Like I've got email lists, I send them links. It is nothing compared to the monster of an engine and the built-in search engine optimization function of Udemy. And just as a quick side note here for your listeners, there's something called Udemy for Business. Now it's called Udemy Business, where if you are a big company, you pay like, I don't know, maybe $10-15 per month per one of your users or your employees, and they get access to Udemy, a certain selection of courses on Udemy. So my courses are part of that Udemy business program because they are focused on business leaders. And so I also get paid based on consumption, not just selling the course, but if someone signs up to my course for free based on their corporate account, I get paid based on minutes consumed. And that has been very fruitful for me too, because then it's like corporate training is huge.
So it's like Kindle Unlimited, but for business.
Yes, it's sort of like unlimited. Exactly. Sort of unlimited, but they still pay a fee like $10 or $15. I can't remember, honestly, like that's I don't think it's even published, but I heard that it's like a fairly low amount for users. So there's like another stream that I kind of rely on just based on Udemy business employees signing up to my courses.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's Udemy. And the other one you've used, which I think is something I've heard of, but it's going to be very new to a lot of authors, and that's Gumroad. Now,
Yeah.
Gumroad is, again, it's a bit like a marketplace, a bit like Udemy, but it works in a slightly different way to how Udemy works. So why don't you tell me a bit about how Gumroad works for you?
Yeah, so Gumroad is a fantastic company. I should always, caveat this by saying I'm also an investor in Gumroad. So, proud of the work that they've been doing. The CEO, Sahil, is just phenomenal. And look, Gumroad is a way to be able to sell anything fairly quickly and very easily. Like it's sort of like the easiest way to go out there and start selling something. You can literally have an idea now and then sell it or be ready to sell it within like an hour. It's so simple to use. You can find it on gumroad.com, all one word. And yes, it does have a marketplace, but it's not as powerful as like Amazon or Udemy, right? Like it's people will usually find out about your products on Gumroad by following you, and you have to promote it. Like that's the main difference between Gumroad and like selling on Amazon or Udemy, is where the Amazon and Udemy is more organic. People find it, people are searching, and then they your course pops up or your book pops up and they buy it. With Gumroad, it's more like, here's the link to buy my thing, right? Like buy my book or buy my course. Now you make a bigger portion of the sale. So, they take less fees, Gumroad that is, compared to Amazon or Udemy. But then the marketing and promotion is on you. So you have to constantly kind of promote your stuff there. The cool thing though about Gumroad and how I leverage it is I try not to sell the same thing that I sell on Amazon. So like, for example, if I have a book on Amazon, I don't just take that book and put it on Gumroad and sell it, because I'm not taking advantage of the package features of Gumroad. So what I do instead is I would take the book that I published on Amazon, but then add some additional, freebie add-ons or bonuses. Like, for example, I could include audio files. I could include maybe a 30-minute consultation fee or service with the book. Maybe I can include a couple of exclusive video bonuses that are not available there. So instead of selling a $7 book on Amazon, now I can pre-package it and sell it for $130 on Gumroad, where they get all those additional services. And it's, again, super simple to use. You can have multimedia, like you can have videos, audio files, PDFs, links to other products. Like you can have really cool sort of things you can do with Gumroad. I can also talk for hours on this because I've used it quite a bit. But yeah, it's, happy to answer any questions you might have on that as well.
Yeah, is it in your program, the Write Your Book in 4 Weeks program? Is this one of the tactics you talk about to start promoting your book and making more money on the side?
Yeah, so maybe thanks for mentioning that. So I'm actually just launching a new program. I'm rebranding it actually. I gave this as a 4-week live cohort-based course, but it's called the 4-week Write Your Book on the Side system. And it is a course about how to write a book quickly using AI tools, but to write it in your own voice. So a lot of the negative feedback about AI is like you're producing just generic ChatGPT output. I'm not a big fan of that. I am a fan of using AI, but using it the right way, in a tasteful way, and then loading it using some AI techniques with your own content or the style that you like to write about. And so this course, there's a couple of packages. One is like a pre-recorded course. You can take it at your own pace, and it's weekly content. But then there's also a couple of coaching packages where we work together in addition to the course. To answer your question directly, because this is a 4-week course, and you get a book published in 4 weeks, we focus exclusively on Amazon. So even if you don't know what to write about, you don't have an audience, you don't have a lot of time, you want to understand how this whole thing works, this course will show you how to get a book to market that you can use as a business card on steroids. Again, it's not about the making money part, but it's about that. So Gumroad is not part of the program. Udemy is not part of the program, like all the repurposing. There are some bonuses at the end of the course that you get, which kind of talk about how to repurpose, how to think about those other platforms. But really, the focus is exclusively on Amazon because, again, it is the largest book marketplace so far, period. Like, I know people who sell their books on their websites. They sell them on other platforms like iBooks and Nook and Kobo and all of them. Amazon is still the behemoth. Like it is just insane. Like 80-90% of their sales still come from that platform. So again, focusing on that and then focusing on the 80-20, like meaning just the 20% of things you need to do to get 80% of the results. It's not about building a 2-year project to write your book out there. So yeah, it focuses on KDP specifically and how to understand what people are searching for and then selling with that following.
Yeah. When I looked through that, you had some quite impressive names of people who have been through the course or who have found your content helpful. Have you got any good case studies of students you've worked with and some of the success they've had with going through your program?
Oh yeah, many actually. I mean, you can definitely check out. But if you go to writerontheside.com, I'm sure I'm going to have the link to the course. It's actually, I know we're recording this a little bit early, but I think when it gets published, my course will be out there. But yeah, I've got multiple case studies. One that comes to mind is Michael von Feld. He literally had no idea about how to write a book and never wrote a book, and went through the program, followed it step by step, and he within 4 weeks got his first book published. And not only that, but it hit the Amazon bestseller list in 4 different categories. And he's doing it right because he's got a course that he sells. It's really about, he teaches lawyers how to pass a particular exam in Germany. And so the book is called From Zero to Exam. It's written in German, and it's just been a great way for him to even get more clients as well. Look, this is an intensive program, like 4 weeks. Not everyone can do it in 4 weeks, but the cool thing is that you learn a system. Like whether it takes you 4 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 or 17, you're still faster than most other authors out there. And then it's repeatable. Like the first time it might take you 3 months, but then the second is 2, and then the third is 1. And like I've written books in a week, and even 4 hours once, just for fun. So it is doable, but I don't recommend it just for the first time. It might take you a little bit longer, but again, once you get the bug of writing books, it's just, you can't stop. It's so much fun.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned just now was creating custom GPTs to make the writing sound like it's in your own voice.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because I've used ChatGPT projects, for example, to create things like my newsletter and stuff like that. But how does it work to create content in your own voice?
Yes. So for people who don't know what this is, ChatGPT has a feature, or a way in which you can create what's called custom GPTs. And custom GPTs are basically customized versions of ChatGPT that you can direct to give you specific type of outcome based on predefined requirements. I know this might sound a little bit technical for folks, and by the way, just sort of a self plug here. Like I walk through all of that in the course, like I explain it to you, even if you don't understand any technical aspects to it. But really, the high level sort of idea is, you basically, and by the way, you need to be a paid user for this. Like you can't use the free version. You have to be on ChatGPT Plus, which is like $20 a month now. You create a GPT or a custom GPT where you can say, you give it instructions to say, I want you to write in my own style. Here's the style that I write in. And not only that, but then you preload it with prior content that you've published, whether it's blog posts, whether it's other books that you've written, whether it's pieces that you've even talked about, like it could be a transcript of something that you lectured on, like a webinar. And then the GPT will take all of that and starts producing output based on your own style. So the way I use it is, for my management books, I have what's called a Write Like Me GPT, where I literally preloaded it with 3 of my previous management books that I really like as a style. And instead of always using just the generic form of ChatGPT, which could produce different chaotic results, I use that Write Like Me GPT, which mimics the tone, the style, the formatting of those prior books, and it helps me create content in my own voice. Now, It's not perfect. There's always tweaks you need to do. You have to iterate on it, but it is a huge time saver. And I do minimal editing sometimes. Like it sometimes produces like a paragraph, which is perfect. Other times I have to do some tweaking and iterating on it. But it is just phenomenal because you can give it additional context, and it just mimics all of that for you. So super, super helpful. And that's what I mean by tasteful AI. Like you're using it to mimic your style and not just come up with generic stuff that anyone can create.
Oh, that's incredible. I might be able to take the transcripts from my podcast episodes to get it to understand the way I speak and things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is like there's so many different use cases you can apply this to, creating different content. Even like you can take the transcripts and have the GPT create Twitter threads for you as well, like based on your style. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's really clever. I mean, there's been so many things to go through there. Your course sounds incredible. It basically breaks it down step by step, and also goes through exactly how you can promote it, and get it all out into the world. And I think it just gives you a really good system that you can follow. So I'm really looking forward to reading a bit more about it. If people want to hear a bit more about it, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so the default is just go to writerontheside.com. That is the sort of the blog / podcast publication for me. But then there's going to be links in there that I'm going to have, the 4-week Write Your Book on the Side system. As a side note, I also own the domain bookontheside.com. That will redirect you directly to the sort of the page that describes the offer and gives all the information that you need
definitely.
about that.
And everyone should sign up to your newsletter. I've found it super helpful. I signed up about 3 weeks ago. And they've been absolute bangers, everyone that's come through. So yeah, definitely go and sign up for that. So sidegighacks.com.
Correct. Yes, that's sidegighacks.com. And the link is on Writer on the Side. Like if you go on writerontheside.com, you'll find the link to Side Gig Hacks there too. It's all sorts of that kind of reinforces what we were talking about earlier, right? Like a full system and a flow. Yeah, so definitely. It's available there as well.
Brilliant. And what's the next book you've got coming out? Let's hear a bit more about what the plan is.
Yeah, so I'm writing a couple of new books. The first is, as I mentioned earlier, I've published a course about AI change management. So how business leaders can implement AI within their organization. That's really been my focus for the past couple of years. So I'm writing a book about that. And then another book that's also in parallel is about communicating properly. And really, it's about how to answer questions in teams. I know it's very specific, but it's like been a big frustration of mine. Like someone asks you a question in the team setting, and then you go off on this tangent and never get to the actual answer. So the question is really explaining how to improve communication in team settings by answering questions directly. So excited about that one.
Yeah, I love that. That's super niche.
Yes, super niche. Exactly.
Yeah, it might not be a bestseller, but everyone who uses it is going to be really impressed and find it really useful. I think it's.
Let's hope so. I'm excited about writing it. Like this has been on the docket for like 5 years. I just kept pushing it out, but now I'm finally sitting down to write it.
Brilliant. Well, looking forward to seeing that. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Hassan. It's been great chatting to you. Yeah, looking forward to seeing more about what comes out. I'm looking forward to seeing some more of your courses. But thanks for joining. We'll speak again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Teddy. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial.